Rich Funk, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from Florida. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about how human capital can differentiate a company in a virtual world. This is just a really fascinating topic for me as we explore virtual and hybrid work, distributed teams, as we explore this world, ever shifting world of work, and many companies trying to bring people back into the physical workspace and balancing the benefits of virtual work versus the value of having people together and the give and take of the labor market and people wanting to have the flexibility of virtual work, et cetera. All of this, there's all these tensions and the desires and the varying perspectives across organizations and industries. All of that leads to a lot of differences of opinions and tensions. So we're going to try to unpack some of that and explore that together today. Also, while we really dive into and try to learn a little bit more about your company. As we get started, I just wanted to introduce you. Rich Funk is founder and CEO of the Better For You company. Now, Rich, is there anything you would like to share by way of your background or personal context before we just dive on in?
Yeah, no, thank you, John. So I founded the Better For You company just over 3 years ago in early 2021 with the intent, the ambition of creating healthier, differentiated, health science proven brands that are for snacks and or beverages drinking. So they could be supplements, but not a typical pill or powder, something that is easier to take, consume, where I'll get to our first brand called Boom Chaga in a moment, where we do the extraction, the hard work for it, and your body just has to absorb it, right? And same thing with healthier snacking. I don't know anybody that doesn't enjoy a good snack through the day, but we know we typically go for the sweets or the salty, the high fats, because they're convenient. So how do you come up with a convenient, healthy snack that tastes great, but also gives you, good amounts of healthy proteins and healthier vegetables, fruits, whatever vitamins and nutrients that come with those. So that's our ambition. That's what we're off to do. I'm very privileged and blessed to have 30 years of consumer world. So 24 years of Procter & Gamble, just over 4 with Mars Wrigley. And then the last one, I was the chief operating officer for a food group out of Edinburgh, Scotland called Baxter's. And all those diverse experiences started off in engineering, then went through general management, leading innovation, and then again in the C-suite of my last role. And all that's taught me so much about what different folks need, as we're talking about this topic here with human capital leadership, how to coach, manage, lead different folks from different age groups to different personal preferences, different personality types, strengths, weaknesses. And so I feel very fortunate to be a part of this discussion, but also to bring, my experiences into what is the Better For You company and our first brand, Boom Chaga, and really trying to make a difference in folks' everyday lives and giving them a healthier alternative to what else is out there.
Yeah, and maybe we can talk just a little bit more about the origins then of the Better For You company and this first major brand, Boom Chaga. What really drove you 3 years ago to
Sure.
start this one up?
Sure. So, I was, again, very fortunate to work for really, really good big companies. But with larger companies, what also often happens, whether it's publicly held or privately held, you get stuck with trading off longer term strategic ambitions for short term gains. So Procter and Gamble being publicly held, you had to meet the quarterly earnings or demonstrate ways you're getting through that to get to the fiscal year, which at times in dynamic times, and everybody in business has heard the term VUCA, volatile, uncertain, blah blah blah, right? So we've heard this. It's been out there for quite some time, and it's difficult to keep meeting that unless you have a good buffer or some alternative plans to keep that going. So there's always this trade-off at times of sacrificing long-term strategic for short-term choices. And I thought that might be different in privately held companies. And what I found is it comes down to the stakeholders. Even though it may not be physical shareholders that have equity in your company, it's still stakeholders, owners, the parents, if you will, of the company. And it's the same thing. And as I'd had enough experience and frankly, I had some personal tragedy where I'd moved to be in Florida during COVID times and was working remote because I didn't know when I was going back to the office. And I had a lot of self-reflecting and some thoughts with my personal loss of some illness where I said, I think I want to do something more on the health food side and figuring out what I want to do there. And then I serendipitously met a guy at a farmer's market up the road. So I'd already created the Better For You company, knowing that that was the ambition I wanted to go after and trying to do something very differentiated. And I met a guy at a farmer's market who introduced me to chaga. And chaga mushroom is something I had never heard about until I met him. Started doing some research, and then had a lot of questions for Mark, my partner, and his wife Jackie. And they had said that nobody asked him those kind of questions before, because I wasn't just about trying to do something farmers market. I'm used to being a part of and or making billion-dollar brands. So this was like, if this is going to be something that's really differentiated, and we're not going to just sell powders or chunks or whatever, what are we going to do to make this different? And that's when I started to really get inquisitive and do research. Hired a group of PhD chemists out of MIT, got some IP attorneys involved, and we started over 2.5 years really refining this and coming up with truly a healthy beverage differentiator that we've had in the market since November, and that's Boom Chaga. The product Boom Chaga, it's shelf stable. We guarantee that every serving gives you more than half your daily antioxidants and significant amounts of a soluble fiber called beta-glucans. Beta-glucans are approved by the FDA to lower LDL, bad cholesterol. They also are a gut health reset. So we have many testimonials of IBS, acid reflux, even diverticulitis issues going away within a matter of days, or even 1 or 2 weeks max. In addition, one of the patents that we filed, so we have 2 patents filed on this. The second patent is we are the only vegetable or mushroom-based beverage that is 100% oxalate-free. I don't have kidney stones, so I never heard of oxalates or oxalic acid, but folks that have had kidney stones know that that is the leading cause of kidney stones. So you have to watch your kale intake, your spinach intake, or other vegetables, mushrooms that are high in oxalates. We've removed 100% of the oxalic acid through a natural chemistry process and then a 3-step filtration process. And that's Boom Chaga. Heart health, anti-inflammatory health, gut health, 0 oxalates.
That's really great. And as someone who has had a kidney stone in the past, it's something that I never want to experience ever again in my life. So that intrigues me in and of itself, despite all the other good things that you just said as well. So that's really great. And the personal connection that you had to the origins of the Better For You company and this particular brand, I think that's great. I think every entrepreneur, tends to have kind of that why behind why they get into the space that they're in, because it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, these endeavors take a lot out of you. It just takes a lot of time and energy and focus, and it just takes a lot of effort over an extended period of time. Blood, sweat, and tears. So congratulations on a successful business, a successful brand, all of that. And to get back to the real topic for today, how human capital can differentiate a company in a virtual world, you're doing this in a virtual environment. So tell us more about that and how you're building this company in a virtual environment.
Yeah, John, great question. And that's why we're here, right? So for me, what I've realized is over the years that there are a lot of folks out there that are extraordinarily talented. And oftentimes what keeps them from staying with the same company is the folks they're working with, and or they lose their passion. Okay, so it's lack of passion for or purpose of what they're trying to do, and or it's the people around them are not being supportive of what their needs are in that moment, right? In that moment or over some time. And so as we've started getting this going and bringing on resources, whether it's full time or whether it's on a contract basis, it's always being at the forefront of, do you believe in the purpose of what we're doing? Do you believe that we will never bend on the health benefits? We will never bend on cheapening this. We will never bend on this. Even if margins get tight, we're going to still stick to this and always make sure that we're sustainably harvesting. Always make sure that our science is proven out and differentiated. Always make sure that our quality is the utmost, because we don't want to sit here and get to the point where we're saying, oh, well, we got a little bit more money out of this, but we've left our purpose. So purpose, principles, making sure that culture is there is critical. The second piece is, I believe in results and people working to get to those results. And as long as they stay within these principle-based guardrails of not getting out of there, and they wouldn't be working with us if that's who they were anyway. So if they can get their job done in 20, 30 hours a week, that's no skin off my back. If they can get there, if it takes them 60 to 70 hours a week, if they want to go a bit further and work 80 hours a week and stretch some things and do some things because they're on fire for the purpose, on fire for what we're trying to do, then fantastic. I don't have a time set. We have very, very, very few internal meetings. It's more just quick one-on-ones. I don't think internal meetings should last more than 10, 15 minutes. There should be quick. A lot of it can be done in email. You read what's there, you give your inputs, and you come together. And it really, if we're more internally focused than external, then we're already losing, right? I think Bezos said it well. If you get to the point where your process is managing you, then you're already failing. It's something like this. I'm sure I got the quote wrong, but a lot of times at big companies, I found that when there's not enough external going on, or you're not growing at more than 2, 3, 4%, you start to create work to justify your own existence. And you have more internal meetings, and you're going after that 100th of a percentage point, and you get into this downward spiral. And that's where people lose sight, back to my point, of purpose and meaningfulness. And then you say, okay, well, then I'm trying to fit in with the other 5 people to that 0.01%. It just doesn't feel very rewarding. And big companies do a wonderful job of with their HR and their programs, et cetera. But in the end, it comes down to me, very simple. What do you believe in the purpose? Do you have a purpose linked to that? And are you excited to get up in the morning, not for a paycheck, but because you're making a difference? And, the people around you have that same belief, you have the freedom, the flexibility, and that's to the virtual office side, right? We are all three-dimensional beings. Humans are meant to shake hands. Humans are meant to give hugs. Humans are meant to have meals together and laugh together. It's different than sitting across a computer screen. But once you establish that trust, you see that there's commonalities. If you see each other once a quarter, maybe once every 2 months, some people, maybe it's once every 6 months. That may be more than adequate for certain folks, right? So I'm very flexible with how as we scale up our staffing, being very sensitive what people's needs are and where they're at in their lives. Younger folks, a lot of times younger folks, what I've seen is the folks in their 20s or early 30s, especially if they're single, work is part of their friendships, their cultures. Like they want that to be part of, and that's the tougher group there. So they need more of that attention, not because they're needy for attention, but because they want to feel part of a community as a friendship that work is a big part of, versus folks that are raising kids, married, or past that to where they're in different phases of life. So I am sensitive to those different phases of life. And again, back to what is important for folks. We right now we're 100% remote. At some point, when we get to a certain scale, we will have an office, but our objectives are to remain very flexible with that. That way we have the best of both worlds. Or people, they want to come to the office, we can get into smaller niche groups, communities, et cetera. But at the same time, we're not going to mandate that.
Yeah, and you highlight just the difference. No particular group is a monolith. So you have different age groups, you have different
Yes.
different interest groups. You have, those who are new, starting their careers. You have those who are more advanced in their careers. You have those who are maybe transitioning in their careers, those who are starting a family, those who maybe are empty nesters, et cetera, right? You have all these different groups, and each group may have general trends within them, but the bottom line is every individual is different. Every individual has kind of their own unique needs and salient motivators, and so there's really no substitute for just knowing your people and just knowing what they need, and then trying to create a flexible environment where you can meet the needs of your people, period. And that's a challenging thing to do. And especially in a virtual world, that's a challenging thing to do. But if you know your people, you're in a place to be able to do that. And one of the things you were just mentioning, like the physical touch, hugging, being physically located, that's not something I need. Like, I'm not a hugger. So if I'm in the room with people, that's something I actually always find to be very awkward. I'll give people a hug or do the little side kiss, like depending on
little side.
I'll do those things, but I don't like doing those things. And in fact, they make me uncomfortable. So I prefer not to do those things. But I will if I need to. But I don't miss them when I don't do them. But I also really like having a tight-knit work community. I like having work friendships, like those sorts of things. So my point is, everyone's a little bit different. Everyone has different needs, and you articulated that really well. And so just recognizing that, and understanding that a one size fits all approach almost never works. And that realization, I think, for leaders, sometimes that can feel a little overwhelming, because then you feel like, oh, how in the world can I meet the needs of every single person in my team? Yeah, that can feel a little bit overwhelming. But on the other hand, it becomes empowering, because then you just realize, okay, I don't need to like create some program. I don't need to create some one size fits all policy. I just need to like know my people, like just get to know your people, just have regular check-ins with them. It's not rocket science. Just know your people, and then you can create a flexible environment where people can thrive.
No, absolutely, John, absolutely. And to me, it's again, it's principles, it's purpose. And then I would say with the associates, with your team, it is having that. And it's what don't you want? You don't want to say, well, how much face time you get equals who gets a promotion or a raise. There are companies that do that. It's all about the water cooler time, right? And as soon as you start rewarding that or doing that, you suddenly have said that's your culture. It's all about FaceTime with the boss, and that's dangerous, because it has nothing to do with results or what's getting done, and vice versa. If it's all about the what and not about the how, that you burn bridges getting to the results. So it's really understanding the culture that you want to have, making sure that people are in line with that, in tune with that, they understand it. Again, that passionate piece to me is so critical, because if you're not passionate, I mean, especially in this job market that we've been in for the last, since COVID, and it's probably going to continue for the foreseeable 5-10 years, because the market's done well, people are dialing back the amount of work with dual incomes. It's all the trends that you know better than I do. If you aren't flexible with folks and meeting them where they need to be met, and as you said, everybody is different, and understanding what works best for them. And if you can't do that, you're going to continue to spiral out of keeping retention high. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk just a little bit more, as we're, getting near the end of our time, around really what's needed to maintain top talent in a competitive work environment, especially when we're talking about distributed teams in a global marketplace, a global labor market. Because as you articulated earlier, when you're virtual, when you have a completely distributed virtual team, you can have people from anywhere in the world. They can be distributed domestically, but also you could have people from anywhere, from Indonesia, Africa, from Europe, wherever, as long as, you can get semi on the same, schedule, and they have a good internet connection, basically. So what do you find is most important for your team to attract and maintain top talent in that competitive market?
Yeah, so great question. And just for some perspective, we've got folks on our extended team sitting in Colombia, in Canada, all over Eastern Europe, and in India. Okay, so crossing through all kinds of time zones, different language barriers, etc. Um, I think it takes a couple of individuals to keep the glue there. So myself and our adjunct CMO, we make sure that we're over communicating with the folks. Um, we make sure that the communication, that it's overly communicative, if you will. And we try to be flexible. A lot of times I have meetings very early in the morning and or very late in the afternoon or evening. And that's to your earlier point in opening this up about being an entrepreneur or a startup. You've got to go where your people are in this virtual world. I can't expect them, okay, it's 2 p.m. Eastern time. I don't care what time it is in India. Let's see, we're on Eastern time. So 10 and a half hours ahead. So it's 12:30 a.m. for them, and I expect them to call in. That's not fair. Right. So you have to be clear with the time zone differences and what you're doing, and making sure you're just overly communicating things. And also I'd say encouraging them, and keeping on top of, the purpose and what they're doing, and thanking them, because, oftentimes, especially as a startup, they have multiple things they're working on. So making sure that they are feeling good about working for Boom Chaga in this case, and then eventually other brands under the Better For You umbrella. That's important, because then I want them, when they wake up first thing in the morning, when they get ready to get into their computer, that they're ready to get going with Boom. That's what I want them to do, from a passionate perspective, as well as that they have an eternal purpose of, hey, I can go make a difference here. So yeah, trying to encourage them and be flexible where they are, I think, is key around the world.
So that maybe that purpose piece, that why piece, is partly an answer to my last question. But in your estimation, what really drives that top talent retention
Yeah,
in
yeah. On
this
the
competitive
retention, yeah,
marketplace?
yeah, fair. Sorry, I didn't answer that. So on the retention side, I think it's when they realize, I think there's two things. It's the purpose inherently, but it's also the, hey, this is the work you did, this is what it led to. Like, how do you, it's not the carrot stick thing, because it's not dangling out there forever, but it's acknowledging. I told you about encouraging, right? So is it monetarily encouragement? Of course it is. Is it bonus? Is it, all that stuff is there. But if they don't inherently, they can go get, if they're good, they're gonna get paid anywhere. So how do you differentiate? Let's just say you're even paying the same or slightly less, whatever. They can go somewhere else. You've got to have them to keep them going. They've got to feel a deeper connection to it. They've got to feel a deeper connection to it. People, I remember when my kids were younger, I wanted to go play it. They want to go play a sport. They want to go play an instrument. They want to go do this. I would be the 2-year-old and ask them the why question behind it. And a couple of my kids that were really into certain sports or into instruments, it's because they had a passion for it. They had a purpose beyond just, oh, my friends play the piano, or oh, my that was not a deep enough reason. It was something that they had inherently, they wanted to go after and go get. And as you know, and then I learned more from being a parent than I have, I think, in business leadership, as far as encouraging and getting that quick feedback of what's working and what's not. And the more you can acknowledge, hey, yeah, this is what worked and look what happened. Hey, look, this didn't work, but that's okay. What can we learn from that together? What do you think? Getting their insights, that gives accountability, because then they start to feel like they own it. Yeah, that didn't work. What if we try this? Hey, that's a good idea. Go try that. Then they're going to feel accountable to go after their idea of what they said, to try to get back to that objective that was missed on the first or second go round. So I think that's what differentiates, and that's how you retain folks, is aligning the objectives to their work and showing them their work. And again, back to my earlier point, John, of when you're going at 2%, 1%, 3%, it's hard to say your work at that 0.001% is really delight. I mean, how are you connecting that to end results, right? And you start to get that downward spiral of going through the motions. So help me, if any of my brands, companies are ever doing that, then it's time to cut bait. That's a culture I don't want to encourage, and I can't encourage that. That's failure. We need to keep growing, keep people going, and keep that challenge happening. People that are driven, that want to do well, they like challenges, not negative challenges where you're going to get knocked off your feet, but to keep being stretched, to keep pushing, to keep going, not for that 0.001%, but for the next 10, 20, 30%. And that's what I found keeps people excited and going, and again, gets them first thing in the morning, gets them fired up.
Yeah, I love it. And that's what we all want. I mean, of course, we all do work that maybe we don't love. There's aspects of the work we have to do that isn't our favorite. But by and large, you want to have work that you're excited to get up in the morning for, that, you don't have like these deep Sunday blues, dreading Monday morning. But
Right.
something you're excited to get back to to be with your team and to dive back in, and it's just invigorating and exciting and energizing. We want people that have that passion, that have that motivation and that energy behind what they're doing, and that can be hard to find. And so when you find it, you want to hang on to it,
Absolutely.
and so anything we can do, and sometimes that's the flexibility of providing virtual or hybrid arrangements for people. So I applaud you for what you're doing there at the Better For You company and with your brand, Boom Chaga. This has just been a really great conversation, Rich. As we wrap up, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your company, about your work, your team, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Yeah, sure, John. So for anyone that's interested, please visit boomchaga.com, BOOM Chaga, CHAGA.com. Follow us on our social media, see what we're doing out there. Our charity of choice is St. Jude. 10% of all of our earnings go to St. Jude. So we believe in giving back, and we believe in what St. Jude's doing. So that's who we are. We're a company. We are a for-profit business. We plan on growing and expanding significantly. Our hopes are to be in India by the end of this calendar year, and we're growing nationally with some massive retailers. So that's Boom Chaga. We're an on-purpose company to make a difference, and we love giving back. So connect with us. Visit our website. You'll see contact information on there. Any questions, reach out to the folks on our website, and we'll get right back to you, usually within 24 hours. In closing on this, John, again, I appreciate you asking me to join. I think that in the future with human capital and human capital leadership, you know, it doesn't matter what your strategy is or what your culture is. It's nothing if you don't have the right talent and people that are there for you, right? So, you know, people talk about capital investments and all these things. They typically talk about cash money out for physical assets. There's nothing more important than the people around you. And if you don't invest in those folks and treat those assets as rare as your cash assets, then you're missing the boat. And that to me is as we continue to expand with Boom Chaga and eventually Better For You. But for now, for Boom Chaga, we have to have the talent there. And we have to encourage that talent and listen to them and be flexible with them. And by default, because we're a startup, we have this kind of virtual setup, but we're going to maintain that. And then eventually, when we have offices around the US, we're still going to maintain that flexibility because I believe that's so critical and important to maintaining what should be the top quality of individuals and human assets out there that want to come and support Boom Chaga.
Thank you so much, Rich. It's been a pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Rich and his team can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great